Welcome to Conversations in Motion with Rye Tri Club. I'm Maria Seiler, co-president of the club, here tonight with Graeme Muirhead, our chairman, and we have this amazing opportunity. I'm so excited to talk to Megan Rath of the nutritionist to the Memphis Grizzlies NBA team, and also to athletes across the world, including our own Graeme Muirhead. So welcome, Megan. Glad to have you here as well, Graeme. All
Great.
good.
It's great to be here.
It's really
Thank you
great.
very much.
Yes, no, I'm so excited to have this conversation tonight. So I thought the best thing to do would probably be just to have Graeme introduce Megan as far as how you all came to know each other kind of organically and how this relationship started.
Sure. Actually, I think Megan and I have been working together for 7 years, 6, 7 years, quite a long time. I actually met her through my coach, Lesley Paterson. She recommended a company for nutrition. So we were just working through my training and so on, and I was talking about various things going on with my food and so on like that. And she said, "You need to go see these guys. They are the best." And I was lucky enough that when I applied to join, Megan was the person I ended up meeting, and we've been working together ever since, on and off, different times for long, shorter periods between our meetings, but basically ever since. So I've been very fortunate to work with her for all that time.
And is that mostly when you say meeting together, is it mostly, has it been coaching online? Have you actually met in person?
I don't think we have once, and that was, I just remembered now, and it was what, last year or earlier this year, right? She just happened to be in New York with the Grizzlies, and she
That's
had a
so
few
great.
minutes before a game. She started preparing for a game, and I met her in the lobby of a hotel. I went to the wrong hotel first, which was kind of funny, um, which is pretty normal, as you know me. But we had a good chat. I slugged back a lot of coffee, and we chatted for a bit, and
The
that was
funny
it. It was great. It was great to meet her in person.
The funny thing is, Megan, from the little bit that Graham has shared about your work together, is how well you know Graham from a way that other people will never be able to know him, right?
Yeah.
So just sure, we'll get to that in a bit, but just so everybody's on the same page, Graham, at that point, you'd been doing Ironman for like 13 years, if I have the math about right. You've been into that
Um,
for a while.
yeah, so I've been doing Ironman since 2008. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about halfway through.
Okay.
I started working with Mega. I maybe got it wrong, but maybe it was probably 15, 16, maybe 17, something like that. Yeah.
So a while. So you've been doing it for a while
Oh,
and
yeah.
mostly wanted to just improve nutrition overall or had a specific issue
Yeah.
with
I
it?
mean, I've struggled with diet for a very long time. There's a whole story about that. But yeah, I've struggled with it for a long time ago. I was very heavy. I was 300 pounds, very heavy.
Hard to believe.
And I managed to make my way out of that myself, but I only got to a certain point, and then working with, because I coached myself to start with for Ironman, and then I met Lesley. I just wanted to improve. That was really what it was
Yes,
about. Yeah.
right, right. And nutrition is just, Megan, I mean, more power to you. I find like it is the hardest thing to understand. Give me any principle of physics, fine, but you ask me about nutrition, and it's just like, I don't know how. It just is so difficult. So when you met Graham, you were already practicing as a nutritionist primarily for all those years. Is that right?
Yes.
And your practice worked with what type? Did you have any specific type of athlete? Were you specific to athletes, or how did your practice evolve to take you to where it is today?
Yeah, so initially it was the company that I worked for, where I met Graham was we kind of targeted and attracted a lot of endurance athletes because that's kind of the realm that my boss lived in himself. So that was the majority of the people that I coached and worked with. But then over time, the athletes wanted their parents and their siblings and their friends to come work with us. So it kind of morphed into just working with anyone who had a health or performance goal. But the majority of my time has been spent working with athletes.
Which it just feels like everyone I know has a health and performance goal. I mean, it's just like just to try to figure out the basics. I just have to ask before we jump in here. Just in our own family, this has happened so many times, and it must happen to athletes all of the time. People traveling and having the same diet they'll eat. How many times we hear people travel from here, they go to Italy, and then suddenly they can eat anything, they feel fine, and they come back and it's like, how do you coach people like Graham who are doing Ironman around the globe and the athletes who are professionals changing, aside from all the differences of sleeping and training, just the basic difference of food, how that happens and why?
Yeah, yeah. I think kind of coming at it from a place of some basic heuristics and principles can be really helpful, rather than saying this is what you need to eat all of the time, helping somebody understand how to build a plate, so to speak, to support their health and performance goals versus like very specific foods that might be available here but might not be available in another country. I think that's one of the key factors that really helps people be successful with travel.
Right. To be a bit more flexible, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So before we jump into sort of quick hits, just to do like a fast round, what would you just share with us your, I guess like your general principles, like the first time you and Graham connected, do you have sort of an introductory concept around nutrition that you share with people about how to view it?
Yeah, I I think that the first thing to mention is that there's no one diet to rule them all. I've seen people thrive on many different types of diets, but some generally smart nutritional guidelines I think are important. And that's where my bias toward like whole foods that are micronutrient dense that's kind of the base of the pyramid, and then things can be personalized from there based off of an individual's health, athletic endeavors, and preferences. So some people might feel better with more plants and animals, or vice versa. Somebody might feel better with more fats than carbs, or vice versa. And there's special considerations for athletes as well. So when it comes to endurance, we can periodize fats versus carbs depending on the demand of a particular sport, depending on the time of year for an athlete, whether it's a base building period or a race season, and also one's metabolic health plays into that picture as well. So that's kind of where I start. And then of course, like things such as dietary antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods that are really important for recovery for athletes, micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals to support cellular energy production. And then of course there's, hydration and electrolytes, but that's kind of the basics. And then we can get really granular from there, depending on, again, someone's personal preferences, which are really important actually, and often overlooked. You could have the perfect diet plan on paper, but if somebody doesn't have the behavior change skills to follow that, it's going to be really hard. Or if I tell them to eat salmon and they hate salmon, like why tell them that in the first place, right?
Right. So let's talk through your just procedurally how so wait, just to make the point, like you're working with basketball players, but like Ironman full distance is a completely different type of athletic endeavor. So you would suggest like so someone like Graham's targets on his macros and the micronutrients is different as a result of that from a basketball player.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the foods that Graham likes may be very different from a
Yeah.
foods that an 18-year-old basketball player likes, right? Very different phenotypes there.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe not. Maybe that's the problem. I
I
will share with you, I've just started to try to improve my own nutrition, which feels like it's a constant goalpost that gets further. And I'm working with this new app. I've only started like literally 6 days ago or something called Fuelin. Have you heard of that one?
I haven't, no.
There's so many different ones. It feels like it's geared toward triathlon. I don't know much about it, but what it does, it calculates the macros for you. And here I am thinking I'm dialing it in. You can dictate what your diet is. And the first day it comes up is like epic fail on everything. I have way too much protein for my pre-workout. I have no idea. Things had protein in them. And like I'm off on everything. The fat's way high. The carbs are too low. I don't have enough calories. And I'm like, okay, this is why I have to do this. But it's so
And that's how you
complicated.
learn. I think that's one of the tools that I give people is like, A lot of times we'll start with kind of a food and symptom journal. If somebody has symptoms that they're trying to get to the bottom of, that can be helpful to put on there. But really, I want to see what somebody's just qualitatively eating throughout the course of a week, let's say. But then the step further would be, and Graeme does this a lot, is to track, to actually see what those numbers are, and then we can manipulate from there. Sometimes just starting from ground zero is fine, but I also really like to see where somebody has been and what they have been eating, and then we can make tweaks from there.
How important is that tracking and timing of what you eat? So I'm not talking about grazing versus meals, but like if you have somebody, like I know somebody who's very consistent, 7, 12, 6, he has his coffee at the same time at 3 o'clock, apple or whatever. And it's just, you could set a watch by his, and I'm sure his whole physiological system is calmer than mine because I'm not that patterned. Like, does the timing of it matter if two people eat the same exact things and had the same gut biome somehow? Would it be different if one was consistent and one was not?
Yeah, so we think about circadian rhythms as far as like, our wake and sleep cycle, our cycle with the sun, our cycle maybe with our caffeine intake. But our digestive organs also have their own circadian clocks, so they grow to
Mhm.
expect food at particular times of day, depending on our normal eating patterns. So it is generally better. It doesn't have to be exactly 7, 12, 7 or
Clockwork.
whatever it
Yep.
is, like clockwork, but in general, from a health perspective, from like the perspective of what your body is anticipating, it's going to be better to, you know, have a time plus or minus an hour that your lunch is, versus one day you have it at 11, one day you have it at 3, one day you don't have it at all. Um, but
Right.
I also realize that some people's crazy busy lives don't allow that to happen. So, figuring out how to work around that is helpful too.
So how did the two of you work together when you started, Graham? Were you tracking your food, like in a
Yes,
digitally
yes.
or
So,
otherwise, and
yeah.
what
So,
you were eating? You started
so
that
what
way.
I got to, as you know, I got to a certain level, and I was tracking. So I've used various tools. I use my Fitness Pal,
Yeah.
and I track my food. I mean, it's never going to be 100% accurate,
Right. Right.
but it gives you a good feel over, as Megan says, over a long period of time. And so um, I share that with Megan, and she can look at it. And we generally talk about macros, um, talk about calories, then
Protein.
I talk about how my weight is changing up or down or whatever. So protein, carbs, fats, what's the percentage? And it depends a little bit about how I'm feeling, what issues I may be having. And then the other big thing, which is an input, is a couple of big inputs is regular blood tests. So through my doctor, we get the blood test that's used for my normal doctor review, but then Megan gets a copy of that, and then we sit and go over it. And it's she's it's amazing what she can see out of that. So like she might say, so did you drink heavily like last week? And I went, yeah, maybe I did. And so she can tell like just exactly, because as Megan says, each body's different. So I'm quite sensitive to sugar. So she knows when I've eaten desserts. I don't generally eat dessert. I don't drink beer. But I will do sometimes. And so I try to do. You never in your life, you can never say when is the best time to have your blood taken. It just doesn't work that way, right? Because I can live like a monk for a week, but it doesn't necessarily give a true picture of what's going on. So things go up and down. But again, even within the blood, over a period of years, you can see what's going on. And then also once a year, we do a gut biome review as well. So I get packages in the mail, and I do various activities to provide samples, and then they get sent away, and and
Those
then
are fun.
we discuss that as well. So and then from that we adjust the additional vitamins or other things that I take in my diet. So every morning when I'm at work and I'm not traveling, I come in with my breakfast. I literally have a drawer at work full of potions, and I'm like spooning things up. And so I'm starting my first meeting of the day. I'm drinking this odd looking stuff, and I then put stuff in my coffee, and then I take a spoonful of this, and then I have a pile of pills I take every day. Um, yeah. So that's how it works out. But yeah, so
So testing regimented, sort of on a schedule, it sounds like. So is the blood testing?
it's not super. I mean, we used to be a lot more disciplined, but I mean, things don't tend to change. And Megan, chime in or whatever, but don't change that often. There seems, things you might see a small change here. So what we're trying to find is there been a change of some that I need to address with some part, like, for a long time my copper was very low or my sodium was low. What are you doing? So she might, an example would be, it's sodium is low, you need to take more salt, so I then concentrate on that. And as Megan says, making changes to a routine is hard,
Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
you're already very busy and you're training and you're working, just adding in, put more salt, you have to remind yourself, because that's in amongst all the other 17 things that you're trying to do. So, I mean, I live off the reminders. Like, I get this eat salt or eat protein or whatever like that. And then you remind yourself to do these things because you quickly fall back into it. So I guess the recommendation I would make is, don't go suddenly into anything. Just make one or two small changes at a time. Unless, of course, you're seriously ill, but one or two small changes at a time, see the result that is better or not, and then do another two changes, right? So try not to change too much too quickly, because your body takes time to adjust to the things that you're doing.
Yeah. Just that habit change is such a huge part of it. But Megan, I'm
Because
wondering,
habits make a big difference, right? Remember,
yeah.
if you're doing that, and this is often people go, "Oh, Graham's having a slice of cake or whatever." All right, but it's the other, 250 days. Even if you did 100 days where you had a slice of cake, I mean, I don't, but it might be 50 days. All right, that's not really relevant in the big scheme of things if you're creating long-standing habits, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Meg, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
No, but I was going to say, Megan, when you start working with an athlete and you get all these test results for the first time, I almost feel like for you, it's sort of like you're solving a puzzle. It probably jumps right out at you what you think that could help him improve it. Am I right? It wouldn't jump out at me. I could see the same results. I wouldn't know a thing from it, but
Yeah, there's certain markers that are more direct than others, and it's pattern recognition. It's looking at markers together versus just separately. So there's kind of a lot of nuance that goes into it. But there's a lot that we can get from just a standard blood chemistry. So it can give us insight into micronutrient deficiencies. It can give us some flags for elevated levels of inflammation and sources of inflammation. It can show us maybe some immune system imbalances, oxidative stress, which is similar to inflammation. A lot of athletes deal with that. Things like glucose dysregulation or insulin resistance. It can give us clues into if that is happening or maybe could happen down the road. So I think, Graeme mentioned stool tests, and we can certainly talk about other tests, but of all of them, I think starting with a basic like nutritional analysis, what are you eating? And then, if we can get blood work, that's going to be those two things coupled, I think are going to give you the best amount of information to start with
and
for the
how do
least
you,
amount of money.
yeah, right. And how often do you do those blood tests? So if you start today with Graham and he gets the blood test, it takes a few weeks to go to the lab and come back to you, and then you make a plan put together and he starts implementing it. What would make sense for him to test again?
Depends on the person and the situation. If somebody's otherwise healthy, no issues, they just kind of want to optimize, maybe 3 or 4 times a year at most. If some people might even, actually, no, sorry, not 3 or 4 times a year. That's for somebody who's wanting like to solve a problem. If it's like in Graham's case, for somebody who just wants to keep an eye on things and optimize, maybe just once or twice a year. Your end of summer, end of winter type of cadence. So it could be anywhere from 1 time a year up to 4 times a year is what I would recommend, depending on if we're just keeping an eye on things or if we're actually trying to manipulate certain markers and maybe there's a problem to solve.
Yeah. It's amazing how, I mean, the habit change is its own type of thing, but also some the details, like the little, like like Graham explaining his desk is almost like an apothecary. Each little thing, you just put it on, you get into the habit, you know it's going to make you feel better, and then she'll see the results and it's working. Each little thing has a small impact, but it really ends up having a very big impact overall. I almost feel like the micro decisions are almost more important somehow. Even just like having the electrolyte on the bike or not is a huge differentiator for how you're going to feel cognitively on a bike,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, at the additive of all of these things, remember, nothing changed. I go back to my point. It takes years, right?
Yes.
You don't immediately fall over if you start smoking 20 cigarettes a day, but
Yes.
over 20 years, it has a pretty detrimental effect. You think of that if you're doing just small little changes from a nutrients point of view and diet point of view, it has the additive effect is huge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And that
Okay.
is something that I'm really passionate about is uh like preventing problems before they arise. Like, yes, let's problem solve if we do have problems, but like can we keep you from cramping before you cramp? Can we like keep you from developing type 2 diabetes based off of the nutrition choices that you're making today? That's something that I think is really important.
Yeah. I would so much rather put the money and time into testing in advance and fixing it to prevent it than to end up putting 3 times the cost afterwards trying to chase it and get it back health wise. So I think of that in triathlon. It's an expensive sport, but I do think of that. I would rather spend it now proactively and enjoy it than try to fix it after if I don't. Okay, let's go to some quick hit questions. Just short answer. Creatine, is it worth the hype for endurance or strength athletes?
Big question. Popular one these days among
Yes.
all of the social media platforms. So, I will say that I'm a fan of creatine. Uh, I do think the benefits are probably slightly overhyped amongst the social media platforms. It's certainly not going to be a silver bullet for maintaining or building muscle, for example, especially if you're not simultaneously doing the strength training. But I do think it's a very useful supplement for most athletes, endurance athletes included, even people that they don't identify as athletes. So you're going to get improvement in cellular energy production. This is mostly from like the higher intensity, shorter duration stints of movement, but it could certainly be helpful for an endurance athlete during events where you have short periods where you really need to push. We also see potential improvement in glycogen storage and cellular hydration. So part of the reason why some people gain weight when they take creatine is because water is your muscle cells become more hydrated. Basically, creatine is stored with water, just like glycogen is stored with water. So there can be some additional potential performance improvements from that increase in cellular hydration and glycogen storage. We see improved brain health,
Mm.
specifically with respect to like uh, if heaven forbid you fall off your bike and get a concussion, having creatine on board seems to be protective against some of the detrimental post-concussive issues. And
Wow.
then also in states of sleep deprivation, maybe if you're traveling a lot, it can kind of rescue some of those cognitive impairments we see with sleep deprivation. And possibly it's even more, especially more important for vegans and vegetarians because they're not getting it through their diet. Um, Creatine largely comes in the form of meat that we eat if we're not supplementing with it. So yes, it's probably overhyped, but there's also some
But it
really good benefits from it.
sounds like a powerhouse. The way you just described it, there are like 5 things that could apply. Yeah. Okay. How about magnesium? Should
It's
we
not
all?
so tasty in your coffee, though, I will
Yeah,
tell you
no. He's tried.
that. No, I have it. I have it in my coffee.
You're actually do it even though it's not so tasty. Oh my
Yeah.
God. First mark of a good professional athlete there with the discipline. That's great. How about magnesium, Megan? Should we all be supplementing to improve sleep or recovery, or is there a too much on magnesium?
There can definitely be too much. You'll know because your GI system will feel it. You'll get loose
Mm.
stools. That's also dependent on the type of magnesium you take. So oxide, I would stay away from oxide. It's basically just going to go right through you. citrate can go through you if you take too much of it. So something like a magnesium glycinate, or magnesium taurate or malate, or magnesium L-theanine, magnesium threonate, excuse me, are probably the best forms of magnesium to avoid overdoing it. And for endurance athletes, because we probably don't get enough from food. Magnesium is in plants because of how it's taken up from the soil, and there is some evidence to suggest that maybe our soil is depleted from magnesium. So we're probably not getting enough from food in the first place. Magnesium is also lost in sweat. So I do see a lot of endurance athletes ending up deficient. And things like stress and physical activity alone can also deplete and use up magnesium. It's important for energy production. Athletes generally turn over more ATP, and then also have which is cellular energy, and they'll have an increased need for magnesium along with other vitamins. So I absolutely think that it's something that most people would benefit from taking, and there's very little downside unless you're like really overdoing it.
Before you go to sleep, I've heard.
Yeah. So you can, the
Healthy sleep.
studies that look at magnesium for sleep largely suggest that it's helpful if you are deficient in magnesium in the first place.
Mm.
But if you're going to supplement with it, you might as well kind of put it in that window between dinner and bedtime, because some people also find that it helps them wind down, relax. Maybe it's the ritual, maybe it's the magnesium itself. It's hard to know. Taking it, period, is better than like needing to take it before bed. But if you are going to take it and it's easy to put it in that window, I think you probably should.
Yeah, I take it just with as I finish them.
Right there, right in that window. On your alarm that says take the magnesium.
No. That bit I got this container, but yeah, that's right.
Give me a hard time. Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't say protein powders. They're all the rage everywhere. Are there risks of overuse in teens or young adults or age group athletes?
Yeah, so I think protein powders can absolutely have a time and a place, especially as a quick protein source. You throw it into a smoothie, you can get some, good carbs and protein as a smoothie after, or a shake after you train. They are processed, and whole food protein's always going to be more ideal in my mind, as it comes with other micronutrients. However, there can also be some additional benefits to things like whey with respect to the immune system. The two risks that I see for overuse would be missing out on other nutrients found in whole food protein if you're, having 70% of your protein come from protein powders.
Yeah.
And it really is important to get a good quality one. There's some possible ingestion of heavy metals, especially in plant proteins. So getting one that is tested, probably NSF certified, and then also tested for other contaminants is probably important as well.
Wait, I just have to go back and you said the possibility of heavy metals is increased in the plant-based protein powder
Yeah.
from
So
the
heavy
soil.
metals, just like magnesium, heavy
Yeah.
metals in plants they come from the soil. So the pea protein or the rice protein takes up, let's say, arsenic, and then because how the protein powder is processed and concentrated, that arsenic then becomes extra concentrated in the powder. So it can be a relatively significant source for some people if they're not smartly sourcing their plant proteins.
Yeah. Wow, that's really important. Collagen, trend or truth? Do we actually absorb it? I have more people I know take collagen, and then I also read in here that it's just wiping, it goes right through you and you're not actually absorbing it.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is, we need more studies looking at the optimal types and dosing protocols for athletes and for the general population. It is definitely a trend. I think it likely has some benefits, especially for athletes who are putting a lot of stress and strain on their joints and tendons and ligaments. So collagen, it provides a unique amino acid profile that can kind of help balance out getting protein from other sources. So you're getting a lot of glycine in collagen, which is helpful for other things as well. And you're literally getting the building blocks of what you need for joint, tendon, ligament health. And the evidence is, I would definitely say it's not conclusive. It's far from conclusive as far as the benefits, but there is some suggestion that it can be helpful. And like with the basketball players, we definitely load our players up with it, and I wouldn't go as so far as to say that it has these magical properties, but I think the potential benefits for an athlete make it worth using. And there's different kinds. Generally, I think like a bovine collagen peptide is good to start with, and then if you have specific issues, maybe cartilage issues, there are other isolated collagen peptides that have been shown to be useful in certain situations.
Oh, that's great. So the downside really, that's not such a risk, even though it's not, the science isn't there. You can err on the upside.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah, and
then
hopefully in the future we'll have more studies showing benefits or lack thereof, and the types of collagen that's better for, and the amounts of collagen that's better for a specific type of person.
I just have to ask the Ironman Coca-Cola question, because some athletes swear by it during the last leg. The last thing they fuel with is a can of Coke, which I couldn't believe. Half of the clubs have probably already done it, but I was stunned to hear that I don't do that distance.
Yeah, I've definitely heard and seen that before. And I realize that this is coming from a nutritionist, but if you're going to drink Coca-Cola, the last leg of an Ironman would probably be the time to do it, because that sugar is going to be used for fuel. Probably
There
not
you go,
person.
Graham. He's
Listen,
laughing.
by the time you get over halfway in that marathon, you don't care. You're just going to eat
Yeah.
anything to keep you going. You're in survival mode by then, right? So
For sure. For sure. So I'm not opposed to using it if it really works for you and it makes you feel good and you're using it strategically versus all of the time. At the end of the day, it's a fast carb source, and it probably ends up being pretty biochemically similar to ingesting some other like processed quick acting carb powder like a cyclic dextrin or something like that.
I love it. We got to sign up on the Coke. That's awesome. Okay, we're going to go for some tips for age group triathletes. Here we go. What are your top 3 suggestions for age group triathletes to improve their nutrition with or without a professional nutritionist? Obviously, that would be the gold standard and great, but if you don't have
Yeah.
access to it.
Yeah. So I think top 3. The first would probably be focusing on whole food carbohydrates most of the time. So there's actually can be a time and a place for more processed carbs. But if we think of carbohydrates on a spectrum, over here you have your carbs that kind of look like they came from nature. You can dig a potato out of the ground. You can pick some berries off of a bush. Over here you have your very processed carbs made with flour. So your pastas, your breads, your baked
Cookies.
goods. And then in the middle, you have like your whole grains and legumes. You don't find a rolled oat in nature necessarily, but it's not ground up into a flour, right? So if the majority of the time you can kind of choose those less processed forms of carbohydrates, that's going to be good. It's going to give you the carbohydrates you need for fueling, but also going to support your metabolic health as well. And they come with micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals that other more processed varieties don't come with. So that would be the first thing. Protein, I know protein's kind of all the rage right now, but it is important, especially as we get older. So very, very kind of loose guideline of 1.4 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight as a starting place. And then you can kind of dial that up or possibly down depending on who you are and what your goals are. And then
Does that end up being about like per pound, 1 gram per pound? So like if you weigh 145 pounds, you want 145 grams of protein
it's
about?
actually a little less.
Okay.
So 1 gram per pound would be 2.2 grams per kilogram. And the literature suggests for endurance athletes like 1.4 to 1.6 grams per kilogram.
Okay.
But if you want to go up to 1 gram per pound, more power to you. There's the only
it's hard.
potential downside. It is hard.
It's
For some people,
hard.
yeah. The only
Yeah.
potential downside I see of eating for healthy people, eating a high amount of protein, is it can ultimately crowd out other micronutrients or macronutrients like carbs or fats, and that's how we get our energy. So that's one potential downside. But I think 1 gram per pound, if you want to shoot for that, especially as an age group athlete, I think that's even better.
Just I said that. Okay. So the math was wrong, but it's just like a high guideline. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So the whole foods and then the protein, get enough protein is what you're saying.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing would be eat a diversity of plant colors for antioxidants that are helpful for recovery. And in general, I like to come to recommend like nutrition recommendations from the perspective of adding things rather than subtracting things. I think sometimes focusing on what you should be eating naturally helps crowd out some of the junk.
Yeah. It's easier to add than it is to subtract too. And then if you add, you might just have to subtract to get it in, but you haven't had to
Exactly.
subtract. There's something about that that just works better, right?
Yes.
So
I think psychologically speaking, it's easier to think about, okay, what do I get to eat versus what can't I eat?
yeah, yep, yeah. Your point about where you're getting the nutrition from and the protein in the shakes. One of the questions we actually have that we're going to get to later, but I'm just going to bring up now. One of our athletes asked about how can you get enough calories in when you're training for she's training for her first full. She's been doing triathlons for 3 years and getting progressively longer, and she's concerned about how she's going to be able to actually up her eating amount to be able to increase with the upped training amount.
Yeah,
Like almost
for sure.
like, right?
There's a lot of strategies, and it can be hard. You want to make sure that you're not kind of falling down the low energy availability rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
So liquid calories can be really useful, whether that's in my preference would be like in the form of a smoothie. So you get some protein, you can, add some nut butter or some avocado for some healthy fats. You can add some fruit, so you're getting carbs. Concentrated sources of carbs like honey, for example, can be really useful. That's where sometimes eating slightly more processed foods can actually be useful, because something like white rice, it's a lot easier to eat white rice and ground beef, for example, than it is to eat, a bunch of potatoes and a chicken breast or a steak that you have to chew. So that's where kind of thinking about like how easy it is to get down some of these foods and how digestible they are. It's like I said, it can be a lot easier to get hundreds more calories from foods that are a little bit more processed. And I think, like I said, there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah. Is there an ideal pre-race? We're sticking with the member questions. Is there an ideal pre-race dinner or breakfast? And if so, what is that?
Assuming a race would start in the morning.
Yes, right. They usually start quite early. Like Graham, you're getting up at 3 and 4, right? And getting to start at 5.
I did. Yeah.
Even the
So
sprints start early because they're in public spaces, so you have to get in and out before the
yeah.
public.
So I mean, just for me, I try to, for an Ironman, I'll try to eat between 2 to 3 hours, no less than 2 hours. I prefer to do it like 2.5, 3 hours before the race starts. And yeah, so again, I will practice that meal over and over again during training. The same meal again and again. And I'm so manic about it. You'll enjoy this. I have rolled oats, old rolled oats, and I have granola that my wife makes, because a lot of granola's got loads of sugar in it. She makes really nice granola. And then I have honey and I have fruit. And the key thing is just practicing with that. But I actually will go to a race. I'll pre-make the oatmeal I'm going to have on race day, and I'll have I figure out how to get a microwave or whatever so that I can make. So I have a microwave, a coffee machine, and I have an old coffee machine that I take to races with me. This is how crazy I am. And I will make my coffee, and so that I have it all laid out, because it's just part of the routine that I've created so that I feel comfortable. So it's as much a mental thing, but I also know that that is going to give me the nutrients I need. I don't change anything. It's always the same what I did during training. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great to hear. Megan, like I grew up as swimming and we had like pasta before the event, and I tried that with a triathlon. I felt awful. It was definitely not what was the right thing for me. So, is there like a night before dinner that, like Graham is his what he's explaining and describing is what I understand too for the day of, but the night before?
Yeah, I think it's going to be personal preference for sure. You know, you probably don't want to eat um a ton of fiber either the night before or the morning of, but you also want to eat enough to where like you're also able to empty your bowels in the morning. That's important before a race
Yeah.
as well. I would, you know, if we're thinking about what that plate should look like, definitely some carbohydrates there. Most people don't need to load up on as many carbohydrates as they think they do, especially like in the night before dinner. So you know, having can certainly be pasta, or rice, or potatoes, or sweet potatoes. So some dense source of carbohydrate, I think, is really important. And then you know, a good source of protein, um, whether that's plant protein, animal protein, steak, chicken, whatever, fish is great. And then probably some kind of colorful vegetable would be would be appropriate as well. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And usually when I'm working with an athlete, you know, we talk about that template and then we talk about what they want to kind of make that look like. So if you're thinking about like a third of your plate as a carbohydrate, or maybe even a little bit more than a third, because we do want those glycogen stores full, and then you know, a fourth as protein, and then a good amount of you know, a third to a half as a colorful non-starchy vegetable, I think you'll be doing well.
Yeah, it's funny how you don't usually have to plan for the fats. They just find their way in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's more, I come from it to come to it from the perspective of like, sometimes there are definitely foods that you want to avoid, right? So a lot of people don't do well with spicy foods the night before.
Yeah.
The day of, you probably want to avoid a large bolus of fat and or fiber in that meal. You'd want to probably make it a lower volume meal before starting the race. So there's yes, the things that, you know, that we can incorporate into the meals. And then there's like foods that, unless you really like it and it makes you feel good, you probably don't want to be eating, you know, a quarter of a cup of peanut butter before your race.
Yeah. You know, I was
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead,
just to,
Graham.
I was just going to say, I think the night before the keep it relatively plain. You know, I like I said, I always have vegetables, bit of chicken, bit of meat, um, some carbs, but you know, again, don't change anything. And so I've done this before where you try and load up on pasta and then you get into bed and you're bloated and you sit there
It's the worst.
with indigestion and you don't get the night's sleep that you want. You know, often you don't sleep that well anyway, but the last thing you want to have is bad indigestion. So the rule of thumb is don't change anything that you
Yeah.
do through your training. That would
Nothing,
be, yeah, that would be my biggest advice.
nothing
And
new on
also,
race day.
Yeah.
and one other thing I would say, also realize that the days and weeks leading up to that race matter too with respect to nutrition. So yes, those are two, the pre race breakfast and the dinner the night before are very important, but so you know, so is your nutrition leading up to your event.
Because in
I,
part, the recovery helps you get more training in or not, and just to build the core so you have the strength to go through the race.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you come in you know, mostly glycogen depleted the afternoon before the race, and then you're trying to make that up, or you're in a state of low energy availability, like you're not going to make that up in two meals.
Yeah, right. What were you going to say,
it's
Graham?
the same. It's the same with hydration, right?
Hmm.
So people try and drink 75. I'm exaggerating. 75 liters the night before. It's not going to work. It takes weeks and months to get the hydration level where you need to be because again, just consistently drinking the right amount of water so that you're always hydrated. So you just, again, you don't change anything. You just keep going with the same routine,
Yeah.
and it will work out, right? And I'll go back. One more thing that I would say is the and I Megan mentioned it is the bowel emptying is incredibly important before a race, right? So again, you want to eat foods that will assist you in that activity because the stress that you have waiting in a queue at a race is just takes away so much energy, because what you want is the least amount of stress before the race, right? You want to be able to get in and do the race. So again, the bowel emptying is a very important part of your race preparation, and making sure you have the right number at the right time so you're not stressed is incredibly important.
I'm sure there are many colorful stories around
I
that.
have
We'll just
loads of
leave
stories.
that for now. But it's fascinating because we grow up in what is the U.S. dietary with the USDA recommended food that you learn in growing up in the United States used to be what was it? The pyramid, the food pyramid. Now it's the plate and whatever. And then you fast forward and hear about these professional athletes, and I've heard some eat exactly the same thing, not just race day the day before, but like they've dialed in their diet. They're getting the nutrients from this diet every day, and they have the same thing day after day after day after day. Have you heard this? I mean, if they're getting the nutrients, I guess it's fine. There's not a lot of variability, and it doesn't sound to me like it would be effective, but it's 100% effective. They know exactly what they're getting from it.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they're actually meeting all of their micronutrient requirements doing that. I'd be very surprised. We don't have to hit every single micronutrient requirement every single day. You think about it over the course of time. But even like taking a step back from micronutrients, if we think about the gut microbiome, for example, we want to feed our guts a diversity of colorful and fiber-rich plants. And if you're eating broccoli and carrots and sweet potatoes every day, that's it. You're not giving your gut microbiome very much diversity to feed off of.
I'm so glad you brought up the gut microbiome because I've felt like people have their own needs dietarily. My sister and I have such totally different. You just see it in your family. You can eat the same thing and you have completely different, or you try the same diet and it just works for one, not the other, whatever it is. But I've recently learned that I also always thought our bodies craved what we needed. And so you could trust your body if you're hungry, if you're not, if you're dialed in. It takes a bit to be dialed in, but if you are, and I recently read that absolutely you can't do that because the bacteria in your gut are actually tricking you into what they want you to have. It may not have anything to do with what you want to have. So is that specific to like alcohol or sugar cravings or carbs, that if you're kind of like on one of those cycles where you're eating something that may not be as nutritious for you, your stomach's actually going to put up a bigger fight telling you really need it as you try to get over it? I feel like I've been through that myself.
So that's definitely, I think, the more we eat something that may or may not be, or drink something that may or may not be good for us, the more when we enjoy it, like we come to crave it, we come to want it. That may be partly related to the gut microbiome. There's a lot more that we need to learn in this space in particular. But we know that the the microbes in your gut produce metabolites and neurotransmitters that can certainly signal certain cravings. They can also play a role in glucose control, which can then have downstream effects on food choices. So, if your glucose spikes and drops really fast, that may make you want to eat more carbohydrates. So certainly there is probably some truth to that, but in reality, there's just so much that we don't know about that connection between, like, yes, we know there is a strong gut-brain connection and brain-gut connection, but there's a lot more that we need to learn in that space.
Right. There's so much.
Yeah,
Graham,
I mean, I was going to say, I think other than all the help that I got to improve my athletic experiences, I think the biggest thing for me is, the way I got from 300 pounds to losing 100 pounds in weight. It was just a mental, battle, which I won. Very hard battle. The benefit of the thing that I really got out of Megan is that I don't have that same cravings like I used to, because I do think your body, your mental, the mental and the body tricks you. And if you eat a lot more sugar, then it does, you feel makes, certainly for me, and this is, by the way, everybody's different. It's really important. But for me, I get hungry much or easily. But if I just dial it back to the right amount, not zero, then I don't have that feeling at all. I can go through the entire day The funny thing was when I started, before I really worked with Megan, I used to go for a long run. I would absolutely have to have a gel mentally, whether I needed it or not. I would have a gel. I have to have one in the first hour and then every half hour. Now I can run comfortably for an hour and a half with just had a normal meal at night, no change, just water, no gels, nothing. And I'm starting to get hungry if I go to 2 hours,
Wow,
right?
that's
And
a huge
so
change.
it's a massive change in just the way that my body operates, in the way that I've taught my body through that work to be that way. Doesn't mean I don't get hungry. I get home and then I'll eat a load of stuff, but I know what to eat that satisfies my body, and then I'm comfortable again, and then I won't be hungry for a while. So that's the difference, and that's actually a very nice place to be, because you're not constantly worried about where's the next meal coming from. And sometimes I won't eat breakfast if I'm not feeling hungry. I won't eat breakfast, and so it's just you just it changes your whole outlook.
What was the biggest surprise you had, Graham, when you started working with Megan and you went through that initial
That
analysis and started changing your diet? Was it,
it was the impact. I kind of knew it, but I didn't really know that it was really the impact of sugar on me, um, and how that change that I just described. It took a while, by the way. It
how
didn't
long, like years? I mean, it's a
no,
big change.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's been such a long time. Maybe over a year, I'd say. These things don't happen in a hurry. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know whether
No.
you agree with that, Megan, but it's just that's the thing that I like. These are the lessons that I've learned, is that you have to be patient. All the things that you get on the TV about miracle this and miracle that, it's all complete bunkum.
Yeah, right. Megan, we only have a few minutes left. What do you see working with this basketball team? We just have to hear, like, what is challenging for them? Is it like just they're disciplined, athletic people? Is it hard to stick to the diet? I mean, they're younger, they're in a different entire arena than us.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the challenges of a 19-year-old basketball player are going to be different from the challenges of a 50-year-old Ironman triathlete. Um, for the basketball players, I think, they a lot of them have, well, most of them have like all of the resources, the financial resources to eat whatever they want, and
Yeah,
they will still will have like the most nutritious spread of food at the facility, and then they'll go, have
Shake Shack.
wings and a burger and fries for breakfast, right?
Exactly.
So we control the controllables, we provide the most nutritious food that we can, and then it's about kind of teaching them. And some of them, I hate to say it, but they might need a meal that is like wings and burgers and fries sometimes, because they actually like need to put on some weight. And
Yeah,
some of them have the exact opposite issue, where if they have that too much, it's really going to affect their performance. And then, for similar to running for a basketball player, like if you're too heavy, that's really impacting your joints over time, and your athletic longevity. So it's really kind of thinking about behavior change of entrenched behaviors. And some of these guys grew up with different, culinary preferences. Some of them don't ever eat vegetables. So it's about, okay, how can we kind of hide some vegetables and get you some more antioxidants in your diet? So there's we do a lot of smoothies. Good vehicle for some nutrition for them.
like how many calories do they need in a day? I mean, do they do double or triple workouts?
It really depends on the player. So, and their kind
Yeah,
of
that makes sense.
metabolic phenotype, and how they're made up. You know, we have some guys eating upwards of 4,000 plus calories, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you count calories with them? Is that a focus at all?
Um, we'll take like 3 days and input it into a nutrition database so that we can see what they're eating, what they need to eat more of. It's not something that is sustainable long term for them. Like unless I had somebody that really wanted to, and I've never met a basketball player that wants to, like, they're not going to be like Graham and track in, MyFitnessPal or Chronometer every single day. But if we can get like a snapshot of a couple days of typical eating, then we can say, okay, like, here's what you're eating, here's where you need to be. Let's figure out how to make that happen.
So I know like fermented foods are supposed to be really good for you. One of my kids, I have 4 kids, one can eat everything and he always has. And for a long time, he never got sick. And I just thought that's probably the trick. But like, I just can't get my head around eating kimchi. I don't know why. It's just something about it, right? So like, there are so many things on the market now, and Graham is very disciplined in putting them in his coffee and making himself eat them. But can you just share a few epic fails where you're trying to get the basketball player to try the mushroom coffee or whatever, and there's just no way they're going to do it? Anything like, what would be your magic food that if you could just get everybody to eat it? I mean, maybe it's liver because that's not one that's on the top of my list either, but
Yeah, we haven't gone so far as to try liver. I think if we tried it, that would be the
that
most
would
epic.
be it.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, I personally love liver, but my wife won't make it, and so I'm not very good at cooking. So yes, that has been one on my to-do list with Megan for a long time.
Order,
Yes,
Yeah.
order out.
yeah.
That's right.
So much so that next time we're coming to New York, I'm going to bring Anna too, and we're going to go out to dinner and have liver with
Have
Meg.
liver
That's
and
literally what
eggs.
we were talking about.
So we have this whole family story in my house growing up that was exactly what you just described. That my father loved liver, my mother did not so much, but the kids just hated it. I was one of 5, and one threw it under someone else's chair, so then that person had to eat it. Me and the other 2 just sat up until way past our bedtime. We just couldn't get it down with every condiment we had. It was just like so. Liver worst I can handle, but like I would not be at that dinner. I couldn't do it for just the smell.
It's pretty potent stuff. And that's where like we meet them in the middle, right? If
Yeah.
they don't want to eat uh cabbage, but they'll eat broccoli every day, at least they're eating something green, right? It's a very there's some give and take for sure.
So do you like food prep for yourself in your life? Do you like have a food prep day on a Monday or a Sunday and you have it all planned out and that's how you get through it yourself? Or do you just have your habits so dialed in that you don't have to do it all in advance?
I do some food prep, and it's mostly just because like the MBA schedule is so crazy. I don't know what day it is now. Um, it's more like when I have the opportunity, or my husband has the opportunity to make 3 times what we would eat in a meal, then we just have those leftovers. So that's kind of how we
Take
do our
advantage of the
food prep.
chance to do it while you can.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, now you're the one on the road with the shakes.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Megan, we're going to give you the final thought. Is there any thoughts or misconceptions you'd want to clear up about sports nutrition or something that comes to mind that you would want to share with our audience?
Oh, I think there's a couple interesting things with respect to misconceptions. One is, as people may have heard, we kind of thought that there was a golden window of opportunity for recovery after like a bout of strength training. I know, we're talking about endurance athletes here. Hopefully you all are doing some form of resistance training as well. But there isn't really, as far as like protein after training. And this also goes with endurance training as well. But is mostly about total protein throughout the day. Still a good idea to space it out rather than backload it, but there isn't like a golden window of 30 to 60 minutes where you have to get that protein in. On the other hand, for carbohydrates, there is some new evidence that has emerged that if you have to perform at your peak the following day after a hard session or a hard race, you actually do probably want to immediately take in some carbohydrates afterward and not delay that intake. So we're learning, like, there's these misconceptions that we thought we knew that now we kind of realize there's more nuance to, and that's why I love the space, is where like there's the tried and true things, eat whole foods, micronutrient rich diet, to bring it back to what I started with, but then we're also always kind of learning some nuances that we can apply to our athletes.
You're really, you've just hit it in such a fascinating time in your field because we have all these trackers you can learn the information from now that we didn't have, and also ways to get the information from internally. It's amazing. And also that we basically know nothing about most of us in physiology and exercise. I feel like we're just starting to have all these really big insights, especially for the women, but older, like we're kind of bringing that through right now. And it's exciting. I love seeing people up their game as they get older. I mean, certainly triathlon feels that way. It gets harder and more competitive as you go. For the people who dial it in, they start to understand the nutrition like this. And once you get it and you keep it, it changes the game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting time for sure.
It is. Yes. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your time with us. Graeme, anything you else wanted to close with?
No, I just want to say thank you very much, Megan, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. We really appreciate it. It's been fantastic. Thank you both so much. We'll talk to you
Have a
later.
great evening. See you later.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me. Bye.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Nice to
Bye.
meet you. Bye-bye.
You too.